how do you prepare for a home birth when you have hemorrhage after each of your previous births? Hemorrhage is a poorly defined complication because fear is involved with it, and also hemorrhage requires an estimated blood loss. Certainly there are ways to measure and weigh blood garments or blood collection so that we can get closer to actual instead of estimated. But still, if you bleed in the toilet or in the tub or into very absorbent chuck pads, it's very hard to get an accurate blood loss assessment. And so the standard definition for hemorrhage has been blood loss over 500 cc's. It was just recently changed to over 1,000 cc's as a definition of hemorrhage. But that's also pretty close to the normal, the expected blood loss. And so I've proposed, when I go around teaching in skills and drills and advanced practice midwifery workshops through Midwifery Wisdom, I always encourage providers to use this definition for hemorrhage, and that is a hemodynamic instability. Blood loss significant enough to cause hemodynamic instability. So hemodynamic instability is where they don't feel well. They gray out, black out, ringing in their ears, their blood pressure is affected, they might look pale, they don't want to stand up, they aren't excitedly cooing over their baby, they're experiencing hemodynamic instability. And that is a definite diagnostic of hemorrhage. But unfortunately, just because of numbers alone, there are a lot of moms, especially in the hospital, who are labeled as hemorrhage when they can get up and normally go to the bathroom and they are holding their baby and nursing and they don't experience any sequelae from the hemorrhage. And I think that's a questionable diagnosis. So first, I would say the question exists: how much did you lose? How did you feel afterwards? Did you need blood transfusions or other invasive treatments? Or did you get up and go home the next day and feel fine? So investigating the quality of that hemorrhage would be number one. Number two would be to find out some of the core nutrient values that impact the rate of hemorrhage or the likelihood of hemorrhage. And so really getting in with a functional medicine doc or a naturopath or a nurse practitioner or a midwife who is very knowledgeable on this, and find out what your vitamin D, B12, and ferritin levels are to see if we can't get those core nutrients restocked, because we have a much higher rate of chance of bleeding when we have low core nutrients. So Abby's answering a little bit. Lost a liter or more my first and passed out when I got up a few hours later. So yeah, it sounds like you definitely had hemodynamic instability, and it sounds like you definitely had a hemorrhage with that. And so the question is kind of why? Why do we hemorrhage? And sometimes it's simply uterine atony. The uterus is soft and boggy after the baby is born. It either doesn't expel the placenta well, or even after expelling the placenta, the uterus is still soft. So the placental implantation site has all these vessels that used to feed the placenta, and now they're kind of bleeding. And so we need that tight uterus to clamp down on those vessels and stop the bleeding. And so really, why was there bleeding? Did you have a tear? Was it a long, hard, exhausting labor? All of these go into the conversation. And then, of course, my question is always, are you low on iron? Because iron is one of the biggest reasons for hemorrhage. Abby's going on and saying, my third, I had so much clotting. I took 3 hours in recovery getting pumped full of Pitocin and another med that made me throw up a ton. Oh, yuck. I'm so sorry. That's really rough. Well, I can't say exactly too much about your exact situation. Obviously, I don't have records and I wasn't there, but I have a lot of compassion for what you've went through. I love that you're considering planning a home birth, but I would encourage you and your providers to look at your iron status. And it's really important to know that anemia and iron deficiency are two different situations. You may have them co-occurring, but you can be iron deficient without being anemic. And I've created a whole course on this called Solving Iron Deficiency in Yourself and Your Clients. And it's on midwiferywisdom.com in the school page. So definitely check that out right away, especially if you're pregnant now and looking for resources.